All right, welcome back to the TCI studio. Orange-white game, spring game, not practice, Will.
Not scrimmage.
We are back live in the TCI studio. We're going to give you more on the orange-white game. We talked a little bit earlier, did a segment on some of the guys that really stood out to us on the offensive side. This segment, we're going to talk about some of the guys that stood out on the defensive side. I don't think there are quite as many that stood out to me on the defensive side, but we'll definitely have some there. I'm going to start with one of the freshmen at a position that's really needed, and Nate Wiggins. Almost had a pick six, dropped the ball. Looked like he could have scored on that or would have scored on that if he caught it.
Yeah.
Dabo told us he had the most interceptions of anybody during the spring. And I also saw another time where he came up on the edge and made a great tackle. Very impressed with what I saw from that freshman.
Yeah, I was too. I saw both plays you're talking about, and both times they stood out to me. I actually even said to someone sitting beside me in the press box, I said, "Oh, shades of Brian Dawkins because he wears number 20." And it's
don't put that on the poor young freshman. No pressure. You just
the play,
Hall of Famer.
The way he broke on the play, it reminded me of that play where he broke on the play against North Carolina and took it for a touchdown back in '95. See, that's how good my memory is.
He can't remember what he had for lunch, but he can tell you that.
I can tell you that. I remember it like yesterday. So so very impressed with him. But I was with you more like. Yeah, that play, he broke up the pass is great, and that's what he's supposed to do. But that tackle, to me, is the big thing because what have they been stressing all spring? Good tackling.
One Venables has said they were soft on the edge as far as the tackling goes.
Exactly. And so they've been stressing that, and they needed to, so he showed he's a guy not scared to come up on the edge and make a play if he's in a one-on-one situation, which in Brent Venables' defense, you're going to need defensive backs that can do that.
Yep, absolutely impressed with that young man. Let's talk about some of the other guys that stood out a little bit in the secondary, Will. I mean, who were some of the other guys back there at safety or at corner? Obviously, Booth. I guess we got to talk about Booth. Another.
Oh, what did he do? Oh, yeah.
Just had that. It was a legal interception.
Yeah.
On the field, they didn't call it.
They didn't come. It was.
Eric McLean was giving Dabo grief, saying, "Hey, Dabo, you're the guy in charge here. Can't you reverse that?" But definitely another incredible catch against a Joe. The only pass that Joe didn't catch.
Correct. So I guess that was one target, but that wasn't Joe's fault.
Right.
That was just a great play by Andrew Booth, and he did it with his right hand going to his left. That's what even made it more amazing. Just to come up and say, shoot, just like that. Gosh, Andrew Booth, he does that to us at least a couple times a year where you're just shaking your head like. So this guy. Again, I hate to keep going back to these legends, but another guy that played defensive back, Donnell Wolford, used to do that a lot, and the old school people should remember his name and the plays he made at corner back in the day, and that's the kind of stuff he would do, and that's who Andrew Booth
Before you compare him to Donnell, there were two plays where a Joe beat him.
Yes, I'm just talking about the interception.
Yeah, he had the great fancy, Sports Center play, but later in the game, Joe got him twice.
Got him that back into the end zone. No, I totally agree with you there. And
so that was shades of the Sugar Bowl.
Sugar Bowl, and he's got that's what I'm saying. He shows those moments where he looks like a Donnell Wolford, and he can make those plays. But then he shows the plays where he's inconsistent and he gets burned, gets beat. He's got to limit those getting beat plays. It's going to happen. And when you're playing in Brent Venables' scheme, you're on an island, and you're going to get beat every once in a while. But you shouldn't get beat, but maybe a couple times a year, not every game. And so he's got to stop being inconsistent there, and I think that's some of the things he's got to work for. Another guy, though, to pay attention to that I thought had a very, very good scrimmage was Tyler Venables.
Tbone.
First of all, I love the fact that Brent Venables is calling hot blitzes with his son at safety and stuff. And
my reaction when he does that, I'm like, man, you're not supposed to call that in the spring game.
What are you doing? And he's coming. And now, I don't think Tyler would have made those tackles on DJ, but it's good to see that most quarterbacks, he probably will make that tackle. And you mentioned it to me the other day when we were talking, how big he's gotten. I mean, since last year. So, he's a guy that's kind of got himself in a position where I think he's going to be a pretty darn good defensive player for him.
He's a great athlete. He's the better athlete of the two Venables that are on campus. And Tyler actually talked to us after the game, and he said, this is the first, he says, everybody thinks he did a lot of two-way stuff at Daniel. He didn't really. He did a little bit of DB, just a very little bit, but he played quarterback. And that was his focus. He said this is the first year where he's going the whole year concentrating on defense. And you could see how that was coming through on what we saw on the field Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely you could. And his speed, that's where I'm surprised as anything, because when he came off those edges on those blitzes, I mean, he's just like lightning. He's back there in that backfield. And I think, he's going to catch some people off guard with that. And he disguises it very well because, here comes DJ, who's seen everything in the world from Brent Venables. Remember, he played against Notre Dame, too, as a very good defense. And he's like, so you think DJ can pick up those things. He disguised it well and playing like his dad, disguising his blitz, and DJ didn't pick it up. And I'm sure Dabo wanted
that's great.
Venables to do
that's
that.
when you want to do it.
Yes. So that way DJ can see it.
You heard it here first. Everybody's worried about quarterback Tyson going down. If you get in a real emergency situation, the guy we're just talking about, Tyler Tbone Venables, was a very good quarterback at Daniel High School. So you do have another kind of Hunter Renfro type guy you could go to if you really get in an emergency situation.
Absolutely, and he's, as you mentioned earlier, he's a great athlete, so he can do some things that help you in the the RPO game and things of that nature. Can throw the ball. He's a pretty accurate passer. Now he's obviously smaller than DJ, and that's where probably the thing that they'll have to figure things out. But hopefully they don't get to that point, and we don't have to worry about it.
But just throw that out there. So we do have another quarterback on the roster that nobody's been talking about. All right, another guy that I thought was impressive that we heard some good things about, and Dabo talked about him some more in the post-game, Trotter. We got to see him on the field for the first time, and thought he made a number of plays and just looked comfortable out. He didn't look like a freshman out there to me.
No, he's not built like a freshman, that's for sure. I mean, he looks like he's a seasoned veteran as far as physical stature goes and all. I mean, I know Venables still wants him to get a little bit bigger, put about 5 or 10 more pounds on, but man, he looks really good. If he's half the player his dad was, he's going to be an excellent football player for Clemson. And I think he's got the potential to be every bit as good as his dad. I mean, the thing I like about him is how mentally ready he is. And so when you come into the spring game, you see missed assignments and things of that for these guys that aren't used to it. But at least from what I was seeing, I'm sure Coach Venables sees a whole lot more than I do, obviously. But at least from what I was seeing, he looked like he was pretty sound in his task and in reading his cues and things of that nature. So I was impressed with him overall. Like I said, I'm not totally grading him. So Coach Venables, I'm sure, made sure he found some things he did wrong so he can learn from it. But I thought it was a good debut for him.
Next guy I'm going to talk about, maybe a little bit of a surprise, and I don't know if he jumped out to everybody, but he's a guy that I got to know when I went out to cover the opening a few years ago, and he was a member of that, just amazing defensive line class that came in. Obviously, Miles and Brian got all the the hype last year. K-Par got some time, but he didn't play a whole lot. And this guy was injured some last year, played a little bit, but didn't really show. I was very impressed with what we saw from Trey Williams.
Yeah.
He was just active. He was disruptive. He had I think he had one of the big sacks late in the fourth quarter.
If you call it that. I mean,
it's a sack.
I mean, it's a sack. I mean,
right?
He touched him.
Was
no, but to go to your point though, he was disruptive, and that's what you look at. It's so hard to judge the defensive linemen in the pass rush situations because they get to just play tag and the guy's down. But as you mentioned, are they disruptive? In other words, are they getting back to the backfield fast enough? Are they causing problems with the running backs at the point? And so you saw that. Are they getting a good push in the pocket? You saw that with him. I was with you on that. He looked like he was all over the place, getting in there and causing some issues. And I don't know if that's good for the second team offensive line or what. It depends on how you look at it.
Williams is a good
player. He's a good player, and it was good to see him making plays, which will go well for his confidence going into the offseason.
So those are the guys that kind of stood out to me on defense. Anybody else you want to mention?
Yeah, we forgot one guy who stands out above anybody on that defense. That's Brian Persee.
That wasn't really surprised, though.
I'm not saying this is a surprise, but what was a surprise was to see how lean he is, yet still big. In other words, you could tell like some of that baby fat, kind of like, if that's what you want to call it, not there.
Brian, I'm not saying that you had baby fat.
I'm not saying that. I said if you want to call it
I've been to the
that.
hornet's nest, and I'm not going to say that.
This is fat.
Will
That's the hornet's
is
nest.
saying that.
But Brian looked really, really good, and I can't stress that enough. Just like I said about Miles Murphy earlier, I thought Miles Murphy looked really, really good too. Those two guys, just like Dabo said all spring, they just kind of like they're at a different level than everybody else. And Tyler Davis also looked well, I thought too. I don't want to leave him out. He played on the Orange team. I thought he did well when he was in there. So really, really, really confident on that defensive front. They're going to be super good.
3 reallys.
Yes.
We'll figure that out watching the Orange-White game. How impressive
I figured that they're going to be really, really,
spring
really
game
good.
And figured out the defensive line is going to be
on the
really,
defensive
really,
line
really
based off what I saw in the Orange-White game. No, I mean, but you saw improvement from those guys, and that's what you wanted to see. Venables talked about the consistency at stopping the run is the main thing he wants to see, and he said that defensive line is going to kind of set the stage on that. They were pretty good last year. He said they averaged just barely 3 yards a carry. He liked that. That's good. But if you want to get to the level that the Power Rangers were, that's like 2.5 or less. Right. And I think that's kind of where they're shooting for.
All right, so those are just some of the guys. Some of the guys are losing baby fat, according to Will. Some of the guys are playing great. But that's just some things we noticed from Saturday's Orange-White game. Got a lot more headed your way on the Clemson Insider, a lot more to break down, offense, defense, in-depth on positions. So we're gonna be in the studio a lot here over the next 3 months trying to break down what we've seen, break down the opponents, break down the Georgia game. So stay tuned to the Clemson Insider for the most complete coverage of Clemson football, Clemson athletics, and recruiting.